Good day. My name is Michael Link, and I am the UN Special Rapporteur for the situation of human rights in the Palestinian territory occupied since 1967. May I first apologize to the organizers and the audience of this important event for the fact that I'm unable to attend in person. Unfortunately, I am scheduled to speak at another event at the same time. Otherwise, I would have been delighted to attend the entire webinar and to learn from your special speakers. May I also give my thanks to the organizers for including me in this event. It is an honor to participate, even if remotely and even if through a taped presentation. The status of women and the movement for full gender rights is an indispensable part of the struggle for Palestinian self-determination. And I want to salute the bravery of Palestinian women and girls who are at the forefront of this march through history. No society in the world can achieve meaningful economic, social, and political progress if barriers, both external and internal, are allowed to hold back the full potential of women. I've told this story before. When I was still a university student in Canada many years ago, I visited China in the late 1970s, and I saw the slogan, "Women hold up half the sky," everywhere I went. And a decade later, in the late 1980s, I was working as a refugee affairs officer for UNRWA in the West Bank during the first Palestinian Intifada. In my work with UNRWA, I would regularly visit the refugee camps from Jenin in the north to Fawara in the south. I was intrigued to see the same slogan, "Women hold up half the sky," on some of the camp walls, painted there, I was proudly told, by the newly formed women's and girls' committees in these camps. During my time with UNRWA, I met a young university student who lived in Dheisheh camp and studied at Bethlehem University. She was a member of the Women's Committee in Dheisheh. I still vividly remember her telling me at the time that Palestinian women carry two heavy baskets on their shoulders, one from the occupation and the other from their own society. The task, she told me, was to find a way of removing both of these baskets from their shoulders, but it had to be done together. In the short time I have with you today, let me try to briefly address two issues that, from my perspective as Special Rapporteur, are important for human rights defenders to bear in mind when thinking about strategies involving Palestinian women, gender rights, and the occupation. First, let me emphasize the many gendered consequences arising from the occupation. In saying this, I am not saying that the coercive environment created by the occupation does not also have a terrible impact upon men. Of course it does. What I am emphasizing, however, is that the particular nature of social, political, and economic inequality experienced by women in Palestinian society means that they often bear a disproportionate hardship arising from the various human rights and humanitarian violations brought about by the occupation. The three examples I will list are familiar to many of you, and I draw them from the excellent 2017 report by the UN Special Rapporteur on Violence Against Women. She first mentioned home demolitions, whether the result of a lack of building permits or because of punitive acts taken towards families of combatants, frequently have a disproportionate impact on women. Research suggests that home demolitions have severe psychological impact upon many women, causing depression and anxiety. As well, there are the restrictions on freedom of movement and family reunification, which have a gendered impact. These restrictions imposed by the separation wall, by checkpoints, and by road closures, and by an obstructive permit system have multiple human rights repercussions which cause hardships in family and in social life, in access to employment and land, to freedom of movement, and with access to education and health. And as well, there are restrictions arising from settler violence, which have a gendered impact. This is particularly so with respect to Palestinian women living in Area C and in close proximity to Israeli settlements. One of the very smart observations made by the Special Rapporteur on Violence Against Women, Dubravka Simovic, who made in her 2017 report, she said that, and here I'm quoting, "The occupation is a real obstacle to the state of Palestine's due diligence obligations to prevent violence against women in areas where it does not have full jurisdiction, because of the fragmentation of the areas under different control and the political divide between the Gaza de facto authority and the government of the state of Palestine, unquote. And the second issue I want to address very briefly is the struggle Palestinian women face with the second basket on their shoulder, the quest for equality within Palestinian society. Suffice it for me to say that the social, political, and legal issues that have long been on the agenda for gender equality remain front burner issues. I applaud the adoption in 2014 of the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women by the Palestinian Authority. This was welcomed by Palestinian women's organizations who are struggling for equality, and I know that the rights laid out in the convention have provided a sturdy North Star to guide current and future struggles for legislative and social reform in Palestine. This struggle must include the reform of all laws that, either directly or indirectly, have a discriminatory impact on women and their inherent rights. I applaud the Palestinian Authority's repeal in 2018 of Article 308 of the 1960 Penal Code, which allowed alleged rapists to escape prosecution if they married their victims. At the same time, the Palestinian Authority also amended Article 99 to exclude honor crimes against women as a consideration in extenuating circumstances to lessen the criminal sentence of a murderer. I understand that at the same time, there were also changes to the regulations governing child custody and measures to fight discrimination against women, such as granting them the right to obtain passports for their children, to open up their own bank accounts, and to transfer the children between schools. These positive reforms came about because of the dynamic activism of women's rights groups in Palestinian civil society. Your work is inspiring to human rights defenders everywhere, and the changes that you have won and the future changes you are still fighting for are making real changes to real lives, and they are widening the life opportunities for countless women in Palestine. I know that within Palestinian society, there are still many legal mountains to climb. Major laws, such as the Penal Code and the Personal Status Law, need a thorough review, if not a complete rewrite, to bring true legal equality to Palestine. Laws regarding domestic violence need to be developed and enacted. Laws ensuring that gender discrimination in the workplace is outlawed, and that women have access to effective remedies for struggles for the future. A woman's right to an abortion, as her choice, remains a legal hurdle. I am very mindful that the UN Convention on Women requires state parties to, and I'm quoting, take all appropriate measures, including legislation, to modify or abolish existing laws, regulations, customs, and practices which constitute discrimination against women. This is the task ahead in the quest for equality in Palestine. Let me conclude by sending you my congratulations for your success to date and my encouragement for the work ahead of you that remains to be done. Thank you very much.